In the past, our understanding of planets was limited to those orbiting our own sun. However, recent discoveries have revealed a universe teeming with a diverse array of planets orbiting other stars. These distant worlds have fascinating stories to tell, especially about their violent early histories. Planets everywhere are formed from the leftover dust and gas after stars are born, so it's intriguing to consider why they can be so different from one another. Scientists have identified over 400 planets beyond our solar system. Some of these are colossal gas giants, 5 times larger than Jupiter, while others are massive rocky worlds much larger than Earth. These planets also follow wildly different orbits, with some so close to their stars that they're nearly burning up. What's clear is that no two planets are alike. Each one is unique in its own way. Yet most of these newly discovered worlds are incredibly far away and challenging to study. Much of what we know about planets comes from our own solar system, with its 8 distinct planets. These include the rocky planets of the inner solar system, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, and the gas giants of the outer solar system, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Each of these planets developed its own unique characteristics over billions of years, starting from the same cloud of gas and dust that gave birth to our Sun. Although all the planets in our solar system share the same basic ingredients, they formed under vastly different conditions. The planets closest to the Sun formed in a much hotter environment, leading to rocky surfaces, while those farther out formed in cooler regions, resulting in gas giants. This variation in conditions, much like baking a cake with different ingredients and temperatures, led to the wide variety of planets we see today. As our understanding of the universe grows, we realize that our solar system is just one of many, each with its own set of unique planets. The Kepler Space Telescope, launched by NASA in 2009, has been instrumental in finding these new worlds, expanding our knowledge of the vast family of planets in the Milky Way galaxy. This discovery marks a significant milestone in the history of science, confirming that other planetary systems exist out there. In a galaxy with 200 billion stars, the potential for countless planets is both humbling and exciting. Aristotle's model of the universe proposed a system of 55 concentric crystal spheres, each moving at different speeds, all perfectly circular in their motion. The first sphere carried the moon, while the last held the fixed stars. Some spheres were even present just to move other spheres, a design intended to explain the retrograde motion of certain stars. As astronomy advanced, thinkers like Hipparchus and Ptolemy added complexity to this geocentric model. Instead of spheres, planets were thought to move on smaller wheels called epicycles, which in turn rotated on larger wheels called deferents, all with Earth at the center. Although this model was eventually proven incorrect, it was pivotal in making the first calculations of eclipses. The geocentric model persisted until the Renaissance, when it gradually gave way to heliocentrism, the idea that Earth revolves around the Sun. Today, even as we consider our place in the universe, anthropocentrism, the belief that Earth is unique in harboring intelligent life, remains a common mindset. However, discoveries of exoplanets challenge this view. Around 20 exoplanets are currently considered superhabitable, meaning they might be even more suited to life than Earth. Researchers like Dirk Schulze-McCouch, Edward Guinan, and René Heller have identified 24 such planets located in their stars' habitable zones, with the potential to support complex life forms. Some astronomers estimate that these planets may have been habitable for several billion years. According to the researchers, the ideal conditions for developing complex life exist on planets between 5 and 8 billion years old, before they exhaust their geothermal energy or lose their magnetic fields. A superhabitable planet is theorized to be up to 1.5 times more massive and at least 10% wider than Earth, which would allow it to maintain a significant atmosphere and internal temperature. Larger planets are also more likely to have extensive areas of habitable land, though life could also develop entirely underwater, as seen in ocean planets. On Earth, even inhospitable environments like hydrothermal vents at ocean ridges support rich biodiversity, hinting at the potential for similar ecosystems on other worlds. Despite representing only 13% of all described species on Earth, marine biodiversity is incredibly rich, particularly when considering the vast, unexplored depths of our oceans. It's likely that ocean planets harbor similarly diverse ecosystems, filled with microorganisms and bacteria we have yet to discover. Returning to the characteristics of superhabitable planets, these worlds are thought to orbit their stars more slowly than Earth does, and have surface temperatures around 5 degrees Celsius warmer than Earth's. Such a temperature would be ideal for fostering biodiversity, much like the tropical climates on Earth, which are teeming with life. These planets would also likely have atmospheres composed of 25 to 30% oxygen, with the rest made up of inert gases like nitrogen. The presence of clouds and humidity would be crucial for the emergence of life. Additionally, superhabitable planets would likely have a balanced distribution of land and water, featuring shallow waters and archipelagos, and might even have natural satellites that are 1 to 10% of their mass. These findings push the boundaries of our understanding of habitability and suggest that the universe may be filled with worlds even more hospitable to life than our own. A superhabitable planet would be ideally situated, neither too close nor too far from its star, at a distance of between 10 and 100 planetary radii. Such a planet would also feature a geological and geochemical recycling mechanism, similar to Earth's plate tectonics, and possess a strong protective magnetic field. Essentially, these superhabitable worlds, as theorized by a team of astrophysicists, would resemble Earth, but with conditions that are even more favorable for life. They would be older, larger, warmer, and wetter, offering a more optimal environment for the development and evolution of life. Contrary to what was once believed, Earth might not represent the pinnacle of planetary habitability. Characteristics like the depth of Earth's oceans, the strength of its magnetic field, its geological activity, and its surface temperature could potentially be surpassed by other planets in the universe. These superhabitable planets could have allowed life to emerge earlier and evolve for longer periods, increasing the complexity and diversity of life. Astrophysicists like René Heller and John Armstrong, who developed the concept of superhabitable worlds, argue that searching for these types of planets might be more effective than focusing solely on those with a high Earth Similarity Index. While the Earth Similarity Index, ESI, is useful, it shouldn't be the only measure of a planet's potential to support life. For example, the exoplanet TRAPPIST-1d, which has an ESI of 0.90 and is the most Earth-like planet known, is habitable but not superhabitable. TRAPPIST-1d orbits a red dwarf, a type of star known for its instability and frequent eruptions, which could hinder the long-term development of life despite its location in the habitable zone. The search for planets in the habitable zone has long been a cornerstone of the quest for extraterrestrial life. The habitable zone is the region around a star where a planet could have liquid water, given the right conditions. Liquid water is crucial because on Earth, it is the foundation for life. For a planet to maintain liquid water, it needs to have a surface temperature between 0 degrees Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and sufficient mass to retain both water and an atmosphere. However, just because a planet lies within the habitable zone doesn't guarantee it harbors life. Many other factors come into play, and not all are based on Earth's conditions. For instance, a planet slightly outside the habitable zone might still have liquid water beneath a frozen surface, as is theorized for some ocean planets. This expands the potential for finding life beyond the traditional boundaries of the habitable zone. In summary, while the habitable zone is an essential concept in the search for life, it's just one piece of the puzzle. The discovery of superhabitable planets, with conditions even more favorable than Earth's, suggests that life might thrive in places we have yet to imagine. Imagine a planet entirely covered by a vast liquid ocean hidden beneath a thin layer of ice. These worlds, similar to some of Jupiter and Saturn's moons like Ganymede and Enceladus, could host incredible underwater ecosystems, much like the deep-sea creatures found in Earth's ocean abysses. But while we've discussed the habitable zones around stars, it's important not to confuse this with the galactic habitable zone, which is another critical factor for life. For life to thrive on a planet, it must be located at the right distance from its star, but it also needs to be situated in a favorable region of its galaxy. This area, known as the galactic habitable zone, is where there are enough heavy elements to form rocky planets and essential atoms for life, like the iron in hemoglobin or copper in hemocyanin, the oxygen-carrying protein in many invertebrates. However, being too close to the center of the galaxy poses risks, as planets there could be exposed to intense radiation from supernovae, comet and asteroid showers, or even be pulled into a black hole. Our own Milky Way galaxy has a supermassive black hole at its center, known as Sagittarius A*, which is about 27,000 light-years from Earth and has a mass 4 million times that of the Sun. Black holes like this one are powerful enough to engulf dust, gas, stars, and even planets that venture too close. Therefore, superhabitable planets need to be located far enough from these dangers to avoid being consumed. Determining where the galactic habitable zone lies is a complex task. In the Milky Way, this zone is thought to be about 25,000 light-years from the galactic center, stretching over 6,000 light-years. However, this zone may vary in other galaxies, or it might not exist at all in some cases. Fortunately, Earth is positioned within both the galactic habitable zone and the habitable zone of the Sun, which means it is safely distant from deadly neutron stars, dangerous black holes, and random gamma-ray bursts. A gamma-ray burst could have catastrophic effects, such as destroying a significant portion of the ozone layer, which could lead to mass extinctions like the one that occurred 440 million years ago on Earth. So, while the search for habitable planets is complex and requires meeting numerous conditions, it's fascinating to think about the possibility of superhabitable worlds. These planets, as defined by astrophysicists Heller and Armstrong, would be larger than Earth, with about twice the mass and a radius 1.3 times that of Earth. This size is optimal for maintaining plate tectonics, which is essential for geological and climate stability. Their stronger gravity would allow them to retain a denser atmosphere, rich in oxygen and greenhouse gases, raising the average temperature to a comfortable 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, perfect for plant life to flourish. Moreover, these superhabitable planets would have a more uniform surface, with shallower ocean basins allowing water to cover a larger portion of the planet. Shallow waters receive more light and heat, fostering a greater diversity of aquatic life. With these characteristics, such a planet could be even more conducive to life than Earth. As we continue to explore the vastness of the universe, the idea of superhabitable worlds invites us to imagine planets that not only support life, but might even offer better conditions than our own Earth. To assess how hospitable a superhabitable planet is to life from a geological point of view, the planet's mass and radius are critical factors. The optimal mass for such a planet is around 2 Earth masses, with a radius between 1.2 and 1.3 times that of Earth, ensuring a density close to that of our planet. This specific range is ideal for maintaining plate tectonics, a process crucial for the planet's long-term habitability. Plate tectonics involves the movement of the lithosphere's plates, driven by convective currents in the mantle. This geological activity is vital for regulating atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, which in turn controls the greenhouse effect necessary to keep water in a liquid state. If a superhabitable planet lacks sufficient geological activity to sustain this greenhouse effect, it might need an additional internal heat source, such as tidal heating. However, this introduces a potential problem. If tidal forces are too strong, they could cause the planet to enter synchronous rotation. In such a state, one side of the planet would be perpetually hot, while the other side would be extremely cold, creating harsh conditions for life. While life could potentially exist at the boundary between these two extremes, this scenario falls short of providing optimal conditions for the emergence and development of life. A superhabitable planet, therefore, must ideally maintain robust geological activity, ensuring a stable greenhouse effect without the need for extreme tidal forces. Another critical feature for such a planet is the presence of a magnetosphere, similar to Earth's. The magnetosphere is generated by the interaction between the planet's rotation and its liquid core, creating a magnetic field that shields the planet from cosmic rays and solar winds. This protection is crucial, as cosmic radiation can damage DNA, cause cancer, and disrupt electronic equipment, while solar winds could strip away the planet's atmosphere over time. For a superhabitable planet to be even more conducive to life than Earth, it should have a thicker atmosphere with a higher concentration of greenhouse gases. This would help maintain a warmer, stable climate, which is especially important as the habitable zone around stars shifts over time due to increasing stellar luminosity. Over the next 1 to 3 billion years, Earth is expected to move out of the habitable zone as the sun's luminosity increases, making it too warm for liquid water to exist. The type of star a planet orbits also plays a significant role in determining its habitability. The most massive stars, such as types O, B, and A, have short lifespans and are not suitable for the formation of habitable planets. On the other end of the spectrum, the least massive stars, types M, red dwarfs, and K, have much longer lifespans but present challenges for habitability. These stars are often unstable, emitting frequent flares of ultraviolet radiation that can strip away a planet's atmosphere if it isn't thick enough. Additionally, planets orbiting these stars are likely to be in synchronous rotation, leading to extreme temperature differences between the hemispheres. Given these challenges, the most promising candidates for superhabitable planets are those orbiting K-type stars, or orange dwarfs. These stars strike a balance between lifespan and stability, offering favorable conditions for the development of life. They are long-lived, stable, and provide a habitable zone that is not too close to the star, reducing the likelihood of synchronous rotation. As a result, planets orbiting K-type stars are more likely to maintain the consistent, moderate climates necessary for complex life to thrive. In summary, the search for superhabitable planets focuses on those with optimal geological activity, a strong magnetosphere, a stable climate, and a favorable orbit around a long-lived, stable star. These planets, larger and warmer than Earth, could provide even better conditions for life to emerge and flourish. While Earth is certainly a habitable world, the existence of superhabitable planets suggests that there may be even more hospitable environments elsewhere in the universe, waiting to be discovered. Orange dwarfs, also known as K-type stars, are particularly conducive to the development of superhabitable planets. These stars offer a stable and long-lived environment for planets in their habitable zones, where the conditions can remain favorable for life over extended periods. Unlike red dwarfs, which are prone to frequent and intense solar flares, orange dwarfs emit less ultraviolet radiation and provide a stable, consistent energy output. This stability means that planets orbiting orange dwarfs do not necessarily need a thick atmosphere or an ozone layer for protection, as the radiation levels are lower and less damaging. Moreover, the habitable zone around an orange dwarf is further from the star compared to a red dwarf, reducing the likelihood of synchronous rotation, where one side of the planet is always facing the star, leading to extreme temperature differences between the day and night sides. This creates a more uniform environment across the planet, which is more conducive to the development and sustenance of life. Some studies even suggest that the Earth's relatively stable orbit might limit biological evolution. In contrast, superhabitable planets could benefit from higher orbital eccentricity, leading to more dynamic environmental changes or tidal heating, which could drive geological activity and further enhance habitability. When it comes to the atmosphere of a superhabitable planet, it is essential to consider both its composition and density. Earth's atmosphere, while suitable for life as we know it, may not be the most optimal for all forms of life. A balance of greenhouse gases is crucial to maintaining a stable temperature that supports life. The Earth's atmosphere is unique in its high nitrogen and oxygen content, but low carbon dioxide levels. However, for superhabitable planets, different atmospheric compositions could be even more favorable, depending on the needs of the organisms that might evolve there. A denser atmosphere than Earth's would offer better protection from cosmic radiation, reduce thermal differences between day and night, and ensure more even distribution of precipitation, creating a more stable environment. This is particularly important for superhabitable planets, which are likely to be more massive than Earth. A more massive planet generally requires a denser atmosphere to maintain surface pressure and temperature conducive to life. The antiquity of a planet also plays a significant role in its potential habitability. Older planets, particularly those orbiting stable stars like orange dwarfs, could support greater biodiversity. Over time, environmental conditions could stabilize, allowing species more time to evolve and adapt. This increased biodiversity could lead to the development of complex ecosystems that are more resilient and diverse than those on younger planets like Earth. In January 2014, a report published in the journal Astrobiology identified 24 potential superhabitable planets. These planets are theorized to possess characteristics that are even more conducive to life than those found on Earth. Given that orange dwarf stars are more common than sun-like stars, the number of superhabitable planets could potentially exceed that of terrestrial planets like Earth. In summary, superhabitable planets are likely to be found around stable, long-lived orange dwarfs, with atmospheres that are denser and perhaps richer in greenhouse gases than Earth's. These planets are more massive, have higher biodiversity potential due to their antiquity, and possess stable environmental conditions conducive to life. The existence of such planets suggests that there may be many worlds in the universe that are even more suited to life than our own Earth. Kepler 1126b is a fascinating example of what might be a superhabitable planet. Discovered in 2016, this exoplanet is located more than 270 light-years from Earth, making direct observation and study challenging. Despite its distance, Kepler 1126b has garnered significant interest due to its classification as a super-Earth, an exoplanet with a mass between that of Earth and that of the larger gas giants. Kepler 1126b orbits a G-type star, similar to our Sun, but is located much closer to its star, at about 0.43 astronomical units, AU, compared to Earth's 1 AU. This proximity means that Kepler 1126b has a much shorter orbital period, completing a full orbit in just 18.6 days. With a mass approximately 3.64 times that of Earth, Kepler 1126b is significantly larger and more massive, characteristics that could contribute to its classification as a superhabitable planet. The term super-Earth often leads to confusion. While all superhabitable planets might technically be super-Earths due to their larger size and mass, not all super-Earths are superhabitable. The concept of a superhabitable planet involves more than just size and mass. It also considers factors like the planet's atmosphere, geological activity, distance from its star, and the type of star it orbits. These factors together determine whether a planet might offer even more favorable conditions for life than Earth. Kepler 1126b, orbiting a yellow dwarf star similar to our Sun, could theoretically have conditions that support life. Its increased mass could contribute to more robust plate tectonics, which are essential for maintaining a stable climate and recycling essential nutrients. A thicker atmosphere might protect the planet from harmful cosmic radiation, while also providing a more stable temperature conducive to life. However, it's important to note that while Kepler 1126b is currently the only confirmed exoplanet on the list of potential superhabitable worlds, this does not guarantee that it is actually superhabitable. Much more research is needed to determine its true potential for life. The distance of over 270 light-years makes this a challenging task, but with the advent of new, more powerful telescopes like the James Webb Space Telescope, astronomers are hopeful that we will soon learn more about this intriguing planet. The discovery of Kepler 1126b, along with other potential superhabitable planets, provides a tantalizing glimpse into the possibility that there may be worlds out there even more suited to life than our own Earth. As our technology advances and our understanding of these distant worlds deepens, we may one day discover a planet that not only meets but exceeds the conditions necessary for life as we know it. The Kepler telescope, launched in 2009 and concluding its mission in 2018, was a groundbreaking tool designed to uncover exoplanets within a specific region of the Milky Way. Using the transit method, which detects the dimming of a star as a planet crosses in front of it, Kepler was able to identify 2,662 confirmed planets, making up over half of all known exoplanets as of 2023. This remarkable telescope has even lent its name to many of these distant worlds. One of the most intriguing exoplanets discovered is KOI 57151, located nearly 3,000 light-years away. This planet has the potential to be a superhabitable world, as it meets several criteria that could make it more suitable for life than Earth itself. It's older, larger, and slightly warmer than our planet, although much about its atmosphere remains unknown due to its distance from us. Another fascinating candidate is KOI 4878.01, found 1,075 light-years away in the constellation of Draco. This planet orbits an F-type star which is brighter than the Sun. KOI 4878.01 shares many similarities with Earth, including a slightly larger radius and a more extended orbit of 449 days. Its equilibrium temperature is close to Earth's, suggesting it could have a climate capable of supporting life, especially if its atmosphere resembles ours. Among the 24 exoplanets classified as superhabitable, KOI 456.04 stands out. Located over 3,000 light-years away in the Lyra constellation, it orbits a star similar to our Sun, known as Kepler 160. This planet receives about 93% of the light that Earth does from the Sun, potentially allowing for life-friendly temperatures. However, much about KOI 456.04 remains speculative, as its discovery is still recent and the data is indirect. Researchers estimate an 85% chance that it's a genuine planet, highlighting the ongoing mystery and excitement in the search for worlds beyond our own. To officially classify KOI 456.04 as a planet, scientists need a 99% probability of certainty. As of now, that threshold hasn't been reached, but the upcoming ESA Plato mission, set to launch in 2024, may help clarify this. Plato, short for Planetary Transits and Oscillations of Stars, will focus on identifying Earth-sized planets around Sun-like stars over a 6-year mission. Moving on, let's explore KOI 77101, located 1,700 light-years away. Discovered on June 19, 2017 by NASA, this planet is similar in size to Earth and orbits a sun-like star. However, little is known about it, including whether it has liquid water or could be considered Earth's twin. Without knowing more about its atmosphere, we can't say if it's truly habitable, let alone superhabitable. Many other planets on the superhabitable list share this lack of detailed information. For instance, KOE 5550.41, found 701 light-years from us, has been classified as superhabitable, partly because it's 1.29 times larger than Earth and about 2 billion years older. However, this classification comes with uncertainties, and much about this planet remains speculative. The challenges of reaching these distant worlds are immense. Even if we discover a superhabitable planet with intelligent life and diverse ecosystems, getting there with our current technology is nearly impossible. Take NASA's New Horizons probe as an example. It traveled 3 billion kilometers to Pluto in 9.5 years. But reaching a star outside our solar system would take far longer. At the probe speed, it would take 19,000 years to cover just 1 light-year, and some of these planets are 3,000 light-years away. The closest potentially habitable planet, Proxima b, is 4.24 light-years away, and even with current technology, it would take about 60,000 years to reach it. However, scientists remain hopeful. New technologies like ion propulsion engines are in development and could potentially make these journeys faster, but these innovations are still in their early stages. The technology that will eventually take us to another planet might not even exist yet, but the possibilities are intriguing. Let me take you on a journey through the evolution of space propulsion technology and human civilization, highlighting how far we've come and the challenges that lie ahead. Back in the early 2000s, the European Space Agency's Smart 1 spacecraft gave us a glimpse into the future with ion propulsion engines. These engines, after some acceleration, can achieve incredible speeds of up to 60 kilometers per second. But if we dream of reaching planets like Proxima b within a reasonable time frame, say under 40 years, we face a massive challenge. The technology, while promising, isn't yet viable for carrying the vast amounts of cargo required for such a mission. Scientists are now exploring other advanced propulsion methods. One such technology is the Vasimar motor, which offers the potential for high thrust and efficiency, something the ion engines couldn't quite achieve. NASA sees this as a potential way to reach Mars, but reaching planets beyond our solar system, like those superhabitable worlds over 2,500 light-years away, remains a monumental challenge. The future may hold breakthroughs in propulsion that bring these distant planets within reach, slowly pushing the boundaries of science. Another intriguing possibility is the use of antimatter, which, despite the challenges in its production and storage, holds extraordinary potential in terms of energy. There's also the concept of a magnetosphere-driven magnetic sail, propelled by solar wind, a concept already explored in projects like Breakthrough Starshot, which aims to send tiny solar sail-powered probes to Alpha Centauri, the star system nearest to us. But propulsion isn't the only hurdle. Communication over such vast distances and the logistics of long-duration space travel are just some of the many details that need to be solved. Now let's shift gears to Earth and our own history. Our story begins billions of years ago, when we were mere atoms in a primordial world. Fast forward to around 6 million years ago, and the first hominids appeared, our distant ancestors. Over time, species like Homo erectus spread from Africa, adapting to different environments. Eventually, we, Homo sapiens, emerged and began shaping the world through civilization. One of the first major leaps was in Mesopotamia, around 4000 BCE. The Sumerians of Uruk transformed from hunter-gatherers into agricultural pioneers, cultivating grains like wheat and barley. This shift was the dawn of modern agriculture, allowing societies to grow and prosper. Yet this change came at a cost. Our ancestors, once robust and athletic, became smaller and less physically imposing as they adapted to a new way of life. This journey, from the dawn of civilization to the edge of space exploration, shows how human ingenuity and curiosity have always driven us forward. The road ahead is filled with challenges, but history has shown that we are capable of overcoming them. The secrets of superhabitable worlds and the future of humanity's place in the universe are still waiting to be uncovered. Let's delve into the early chapters of human civilization, exploring the legends, achievements, and cultural developments that shaped the ancient world. Around 3000 BCE, the Sumerians of Mesopotamia were at the height of their power. According to legend, King Gilgamesh ruled as one of the earliest and most storied kings of this ancient civilization. His quest for immortality is immortalized in the Asterisk epic of Gilgamesh Asterisk, one of the world's oldest known poems. In this epic tale, Gilgamesh meets a wise traveler, Utnapishtim, who recounts the story of a great flood sent to destroy the world. By the end of the poem, Gilgamesh reflects on the nature of life and death, realizing that immortality is beyond human grasp. Life which you seek you will never find, he concludes, as the gods have reserved eternal life for themselves. As the Sumerian era came to a close, the Akkadians, led by Sargon the Great, rose to power and conquered Sumeria. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley, a new civilization was emerging in what is now modern-day Pakistan. This civilization, which thrived from around 3,300 to 1300 BCE, was remarkable for its advanced urban planning, particularly its sophisticated toilet and drainage systems. These early innovations in sanitation helped maintain public health by carrying waste away from homes and treating it outside city limits, preventing the spread of disease. Across the world in ancient Egypt, the focus was not on sanitation, but on monumental architecture and the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that when a pharaoh died, his spirit would continue to rule in the afterlife. And to ensure this, they built grand pyramids to serve as eternal resting places. These pyramids, filled with treasures and offerings, were meant to provide the pharaoh with everything he would need in the next world. The construction of these monumental structures began with Pharaoh Djoser's Step Pyramid around 2667 BCE, followed by the Great Pyramids of Giza built by pharaohs Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. The Great Pyramid of Giza, in particular, remains one of the most awe-inspiring architectural feats in human history. Meanwhile, in China, the First Dynasty was taking shape around 2100 BCE. According to legend, the Xia dynasty began with Yu the Great, a hero who tamed the devastating floods of the Yellow River by building levees and dikes. Yu's efforts not only saved the crops and lives of his people, but also established the precedent that power should be earned through merit. This idea of meritocracy would influence Chinese governance for centuries. In Mesopotamia, by 1772 BCE, the Babylonian king Hammurabi was laying down the foundation of one of the earliest legal systems. Hammurabi's code, inscribed on a 7-foot-tall stone slab, consisted of 282 laws designed to bring order and justice to his kingdom. These laws covered a wide range of topics, from property rights to personal injury, and introduced the concept of an eye for an eye. Hammurabi's code established a society where laws were clearly defined, and people were placed into specific social classes with corresponding rights and responsibilities. These ancient civilizations, each in their own way, contributed to the tapestry of human history, leaving behind legacies that continue to influence us today. Whether through law, architecture, or the pursuit of wisdom, the achievements of these early cultures laid the groundwork for the world we live in now. In ancient Babylon, society was starkly divided by class, and this hierarchy was reflected in their laws. The value of a person's life, and even their body parts, was determined by their social status. A noble's bone, for instance, was considered more valuable than that of a commoner, and far more than a slave's. This idea of inequality has echoed throughout history, where the worth of individuals was often dictated by their position in society. Meanwhile, in what is now modern-day Turkey, the Hittite Empire was rising to power under the leadership of Labarnas, who ruled from 1680 to 1650 BCE. Labarnas was a visionary leader, determined to unite the fragmented Hittite city-states under one rule. He led his armies from city to city, either conquering or forming alliances with neighboring states. Through his diplomatic and military prowess, Labarnas succeeded in establishing a unified Hittite empire. Under his just and fair rule, the empire thrived, expanding its territory and positioning itself as a significant power, right alongside Egypt. At the same time, on the European continent, Mycenaean Greece was emerging as a collection of powerful city-states between 1600 and 1100 BCE. This period was characterized by an elite warrior society, with each city-state, such as Mycenae, Troy, and Pylos, operating independently. These city-states developed complex hierarchical systems, with kings at the top. During this time, the first remnants of Greek written language, known as Linear B, began to appear, marking the earliest recorded Indo-European language in the region. Back in Egypt, society was structured into a rigid social pyramid, much like the Great Pyramid itself. At the base were the peasants and slaves, who toiled on the land and worked on the pharaoh's monumental building projects, including the pyramids. Just above them were the artisans, stonemasons, plasterers, and sculptors, who created the magnificent art for which Egypt is still celebrated today. The merchants came next, navigating the Nile to trade goods like gold, papyrus, and linen, earning respect and wealth in the process. Higher up the social ladder were the scribes, who mastered the ancient Egyptian language and documented everything from tax records to the pharaoh's daily life. The soldiers who defended the empire were well-fed and held in esteem. Above them were the bureaucrats, including viziers, who managed the logistical needs of the empire, and priests, who ensured the gods were properly worshipped. At the very top was the pharaoh, considered the divine mediator between the gods and humans, ruling with absolute authority. Pharaoh Ramses II, who reigned from 1279 to 1213 BCE, was one of the most notable leaders of this system. Under his rule, Egypt flourished, and he commissioned the construction of iconic structures such as the Temple of Abu Simbel, the Ramesseum, and the Temple of Karnak. Ramses also expanded the Egyptian empire, reclaiming lands lost by previous pharaohs, though his efforts were constantly challenged by the neighboring Hittite Empire. The Hittite king, Muwatalli II, 1295–1272 BCE, followed in the footsteps of Labarnus, striving to expand his empire by attacking Egyptian territories. Muwatalli sought to unify the world under Hittite rule, much like his predecessor had unified the Hittite city-states. However, Ramses II, recognizing the persistent threat from the Hittites, was determined to defend and secure his empire's borders. This rivalry between the Egyptians and the Hittites would lead to some of the most significant military confrontations of the ancient world, including the famous Battle of Kadesh, which marked a pivotal moment in the history of these two great civilizations. The balance between opposites in the universe. Yin and Yang are complementary forces that interact to form a dynamic system in which the whole is greater than the assembled parts. For example, light cannot exist without darkness, and vice versa. This concept is central to Taoist thought, emphasizing harmony and balance in life and the natural world. As the Zhou dynasty progressed, these philosophies deeply influenced Chinese culture and governance. Confucianism, with its emphasis on social harmony, respect for authority, and the importance of education, became the backbone of Chinese social and political life. It established a model for moral behavior and governance that would endure for millennia. On the other hand, Taoism offered a more individualistic and spiritual approach, encouraging people to live in harmony with nature and find peace within themselves. During this time, the Zhou dynasty's feudal system allowed for the rise of powerful local lords, which eventually led to the fragmentation of the empire. This period, known as the Spring and Autumn period, 770–476 BCE, and later the Warring States period, 475–221 BCE, was marked by constant conflict and the struggle for power among rival states. Despite the chaos, this era also saw significant advancements in philosophy, culture, and military strategy, laying the groundwork for the unification of China under the Qin dynasty. As the Zhou dynasty's power waned, the concept of the mandate of heaven remained a crucial element in Chinese political thought. The idea that a ruler's legitimacy was granted by heaven and could be revoked in times of misrule or natural disaster justified the rise and fall of dynasties throughout Chinese history. While the Zhou dynasty was shaping the foundations of Chinese civilization, other cultures around the world were also developing their unique identities. In Mesoamerica, the Olmec civilization laid the groundwork for future civilizations like the Maya and the Aztec. Although much about the Olmecs remains a mystery due to the undeciphered nature of their writing, their colossal stone heads and other artifacts suggest a society rich in culture and spirituality. The Battle of Kadesh, fought between the Egyptians and the Hittites, exemplified the power struggles of the ancient world, but also demonstrated the potential for diplomacy and peace. The eventual peace treaty between Ramses II and Hattusili III marked the first recorded instance of such an agreement, showing that even in a time of conflict, humanity had the capacity for cooperation and mutual respect. In this ancient world, from the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia to the river valleys of China and the Americas, the seeds of human civilization were being sown. Through war, diplomacy, philosophy, and innovation, these early cultures laid the foundations for the complex societies that would follow, each contributing to the shared human story that continues to unfold today. Plato was one of the most vocal critics. He believed that democracy was flawed because it allowed the uninformed masses to make critical decisions, leading to poor governance. In his work, The Republic, Plato argued that a philosopher king, a ruler with wisdom and knowledge, would be better suited to govern than the general populace. He contended that true justice and order could only be achieved under the leadership of the most educated and virtuous individuals. Despite the criticisms, Athenian democracy was revolutionary for its time, giving citizens an unprecedented level of participation in government. It laid the foundation for modern democratic systems, where the idea of people having a say in their governance became more common. While Athens and Sparta were developing their distinct forms of governance, the Persian Empire, under leaders like Cyrus the Great and Darius the Great, was expanding rapidly. Darius the Great, who ruled from 522 to 486 BCE, further solidified the Persian Empire's power. He reorganized the empire into provinces, or satrapies, each governed by a satrap who was responsible for collecting taxes, providing security, and enforcing the king's laws. This system allowed the vast Persian Empire to be efficiently managed, contributing to its long-lasting stability. Darius also initiated ambitious infrastructure projects, including the construction of the Royal Road, which facilitated communication and trade across the empire. His reign marked the height of the Persian Empire, which extended from the Indus Valley in the east to Thrace in the west. As the Persian Empire grew, so did tensions with the Greek city-states, particularly Athens. This rivalry eventually led to the Greco-Persian Wars, a series of conflicts that would shape the course of Western history. Despite their differences, the Greek city-states united against the common threat of Persian invasion, leading to famous battles such as Marathon and Thermopylae. The clash between the Greeks and the Persians highlighted the stark contrast between the democratic ideals of Athens and the autocratic rule of the Persian kings. It also set the stage for the eventual rise of the Macedonian Empire under Alexander the Great, who would go on to conquer the Persian Empire and spread Greek culture across much of the known world. As ancient civilizations continued to evolve, the legacies of these early empires, city-states, and philosophical traditions would resonate throughout history, influencing the development of political systems, cultural practices, and ideas that continue to shape our world today. Took up the mantle of Persian expansion and was determined to avenge his father's defeat at Marathon. Xerxes I, who ruled from 486 to 465 BCE, launched a massive invasion of Greece in 480 BCE, aiming to finally subjugate the fractious Greek city-states. Unlike his father's campaign, Xerxes prepared meticulously, assembling one of the largest armies the ancient world had ever seen, supported by a formidable navy. The Greeks, despite their previous victory, knew they were vastly outnumbered. Faced with the impending Persian onslaught, they formed an unprecedented alliance among the city-states, including Athens and Sparta, who set aside their differences to confront the common threat. The most famous encounter in this conflict was the Battle of Thermopylae, where King Leonidas of Sparta and his 300 Spartans, along with a few thousand other Greek allies, made a legendary stand against the Persian forces. Though they were eventually defeated, the Spartans' heroic resistance became a symbol of courage and sacrifice. Following Thermopylae, the Persian army marched south, capturing Athens and burning the Acropolis. However, the Greeks, led by the Athenian general Themistocles, lured the Persian navy into the narrow straits of Salamis. Here, the smaller and more maneuverable Greek ships outmaneuvered the larger Persian vessels, delivering a decisive blow to Xerxes' naval power. With his navy crippled and supply lines threatened, Xerxes retreated to Asia, leaving a portion of his army behind under the command of Mardonius. The following year, in 479 BCE, the Greeks achieved final victory at the Battle of Plataea, where the Persian army was decisively defeated, marking the end of the Persian invasion. The Greek victories in the Greco-Persian Wars had profound consequences. They preserved the independence of the Greek city-states and allowed the unique Greek culture, with its emphasis on democracy, philosophy, and the arts, to flourish. This period, known as the Golden Age of Athens, saw the rise of figures like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, whose ideas would shape Western thought for millennia. However, as Plato's criticism of Athenian democracy highlights, even in the wake of these victories, the Greeks continued to grapple with the question of how best to govern their societies. The tension between the ideals of democracy and the realities of human nature remained a central theme in Greek political thought. Meanwhile, the story of Siddhartha Gautama in India was unfolding concurrently with these events in Greece and Persia. The Buddha's teachings on suffering, impermanence, and the path to enlightenment spread across the Indian subcontinent, offering a spiritual alternative to the material and political concerns that dominated the ancient world. The contrast between the political and military struggles in Greece and Persia and the spiritual journey of the Buddha in India underscores the diversity of human experience in this era. While some sought to conquer and rule, others, like the Buddha, sought to understand the nature of existence and the path to inner peace. These different pursuits, whether of power or enlightenment, have left enduring legacies that continue to influence our world today. Commanders of Athens was recalled to stand trial for sacrilege, leaving the Athenian expedition in disarray. The loss of Alcibiades was a significant blow to the Athenian forces, as his military acumen and charisma were unmatched. Without strong leadership, the Athenians made critical strategic errors, and the Sicilians, supported by Sparta, were able to regroup. The turning point came when the Spartan general Gylippus arrived in Sicily with reinforcements. Under his command, the combined Sicilian and Spartan forces laid siege to the Athenian army, cutting off their supplies and escape routes. The situation grew increasingly dire for Athens, and a disastrous naval battle in the great harbor of Syracuse sealed their fate. The Athenian fleet was destroyed, and the remaining soldiers were either killed or captured. The failure of the Sicilian expedition in 413 BCE was a catastrophic loss for Athens, weakening their military and morale significantly. The Peloponnesian War dragged on for several more years, with Sparta and its allies gradually gaining the upper hand. In 404 BCE, Athens finally surrendered, marking the end of the war and the loss of Athenian supremacy in Greece. The aftermath of the Peloponnesian War left Greece fractured and weakened. Sparta, though victorious, struggled to maintain control over the Greek city-states, leading to further conflicts and instability. The once glorious golden age of Athens had come to an end, leaving behind a legacy of remarkable achievements in art, philosophy, and politics, but also a cautionary tale of the perils of imperial ambition and internal discord. Despite the turmoil, the cultural achievements of this period, including the works of playwrights like Sophocles, Aeschylus, and Aristophanes, and the philosophical contributions of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, continued to influence Western civilization for centuries to come. The lessons learned from the rise and fall of Athens would resonate throughout history, shaping the development of political thought and the understanding of the dynamics of power and governance. Let me take you on a journey through history where empires rose and fell, shaping the world as we know it today. In ancient Athens, a general was summoned back to face charges, leaving the Athenian fleet without its crucial leadership. In his absence, the expedition crumbled. The Athenians, unable to conquer the fortified city of Syracuse, were met with fierce resistance bolstered by Spartan reinforcements. The Spartans, seizing the opportunity to deal a devastating blow to their longtime rival, aided in the eventual downfall of Athens. Plagued by disease and a lack of supplies, the Athenians were ambushed and eventually defeated in a decisive battle, marking the beginning of the end for Athens. A decade later, Athens would fall to Sparta, and the glory of ancient Greece would fade, leaving both city-states weakened and paving the way for new powers to rise. Meanwhile, in the East, the Zhou dynasty's reign of 800 years was coming to an end, leading to the chaotic Warring States period, 474–221 BCE. This era of conflict gave rise to new philosophies, including legalism, developed by Han Feici. Legalism taught that humans were inherently selfish and needed strict laws, enforced by a powerful ruler, to maintain social order. This philosophy would later influence the formation of strong centralized states in China. On the other side of the world, in the Oaxaca region of Mexico, the Zapotec civilization was flourishing. Their capital, Monte Alban, perched high on a mountaintop, was a testament to their ingenuity. The Zapotecs were pioneers in agriculture, developing methods to sustain their society even in times of drought. They also created an early writing system and an advanced calendar, showcasing their sophisticated understanding of the world. Back in Greece in 356 BCE, a leader destined to change history was born. Alexander the Great, the son of King Philip II and Queen Olympias, was educated by none other than Aristotle, one of the greatest minds in history. Under Aristotle's tutelage, Alexander learned philosophy, ethics, and science, shaping him into a formidable leader. When his father was assassinated, a 20-year-old Alexander swiftly took control, crushing a revolt in Thebes and then setting his sights on Persia. His military genius was unmatched, He defeated the Persian king Darius III in several key battles, including the famous Battle of Gaugamela. Alexander's conquests stretched from Greece to modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, and even into India, where his troops, weary from years of campaigning, finally convinced him to turn back. Though he never conquered India, his legacy lived on, and in the Indian subcontinent, the Mauryan Empire emerged as a new powerhouse. These stories from history remind us of the rise and fall of great empires, the birth of new philosophies, and the indomitable human spirit that drives progress and change. At its peak, the Mauryan Empire stretched across vast regions of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, a testament to its powerful expansion under Ashoka the Great. However, this conquest came at a great personal cost for Ashoka. In 261 BCE, after the death of his parents, Ashoka set his sights on the kingdom of Kalinga, determined to expand his empire further. The war that followed was brutal and devastating, claiming the lives of over 100,000 people. The bloodshed left Ashoka deeply troubled, unable to reconcile with the immense loss of life caused by his actions. In his search for peace, Ashoka turned to the teachings of the Buddha. Under his rule, the Mauryan Empire became a beacon of Buddhist philosophy, promoting nonviolence and compassion. Ashoka issued a series of edicts, carved into rocks and pillars across the empire, advocating for kindness, respect for all religions, and the abolition of slavery. These principles stood in stark contrast to the values of the West, where figures like Alexander the Great were celebrated for their conquests and warrior spirit. Alexander, who died at just 32 in Babylon, had spent his life spreading Greek culture and ideals across the lands he conquered, leaving a lasting legacy that would influence Western civilization for centuries. But his empire, vast as it was, couldn't hold together after his death. His generals, each hungry for power, descended into infighting, and by 323 BCE, the empire was divided into three major realms: the Ptolemies in Egypt, the Seleucids in the east, and the Antigonids in Greece. Under Ptolemy's leadership, Egypt entered a period of great prosperity, with the construction of the famous Library of Alexandria, a hub for intellectual exchange that attracted scholars from all over the known world. Meanwhile, Seleucus, who controlled the eastern territories, favored Greek culture and language, ruling over an empire that stretched from modern-day Turkey to Pakistan during the reign of King Antiochus III. The Antigonids, however, struggled to maintain their power, as Greece had already seen the height of its glory. As the Greeks and their successors grappled with internal struggles, Rome was on the rise, facing off against the powerful city of Carthage. The First Punic War erupted over control of the strategically important city-state of Messina on the island of Sicily. After 2 decades of fierce fighting, Rome emerged victorious in 241 BCE. But peace was short-lived. In 218 BCE, the Second Punic War began, when the Carthaginian general Hannibal launched a daring invasion of Italy, famously crossing the Alps with his war elephants. Despite several early victories, including the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE, Hannibal was ultimately defeated by the Roman general Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE. This marked the end of the Carthaginian Empire and solidified Rome's dominance in the West. While Rome rose to power in the West, the East saw the end of the Warring States period in China, with the Qin dynasty under Qin Shi Huang unifying the Chinese territories into a single empire in 221 BCE. Qin's rule was marked by strict legalist policies, dividing the land into command areas governed by officials loyal to him. His harsh methods ensured a strong, centralized government, but after his death, the Qin dynasty quickly unraveled. In 206 BCE, Liu Bang led a successful revolt against the Qin, establishing the Han dynasty and ushering in an era of Confucianist governance, focused on moderation and moral values. During the Han dynasty, the values of virtue and piety inspired by Confucianism were deeply woven into the fabric of the empire, creating the foundation for a powerful dynasty. As silk production flourished, the idea of profit became a central focus. In 138 BCE, Emperor Han Wu took a bold step by sending an imperial envoy to establish contact with cultures in Central Asia and the Mediterranean. Once the Silk Road was established, Chinese merchants began transporting silk to the Middle East and Europe, where it fetched high prices. Initially, the Silk Road was relatively short, but in 97 BCE, Ambassador Zhang Qian was sent to Rome with silk gifts for the empire. Unfortunately, he only made it as far as Mesopotamia, where the Parthians, the dominant power in Iran, misled him into believing that the journey would take years. In truth, the trip was much shorter, but the Parthians wanted to maintain their role as middlemen and prevent direct contact between China and Rome, keeping three empires, Rome in the west, Parthia in the center, and China in the east, distinct yet interlinked. Meanwhile, in 86 BCE, Rome turned its sights on Greece, which had already been weakened by Alexander the Great's conquests. Roman general Lucius Cornelius Sulla led an army to Athens, besieging the city for several months. The fall of Athens solidified Rome's position as a superpower, shifting the balance of power to Rome. In 63 BCE, General Pompey was tasked with capturing Jerusalem and Galilee. The Roman forces swiftly took control, including the small village of Nazareth. Rome's ambition didn't stop there. In 58 BCE, Julius Caesar was appointed governor of northern Italy with the mission to conquer the Gauls, a Celtic people living in what is now France, Belgium, and parts of Switzerland, Germany, and Italy. Despite the Gauls' fierce resistance, they eventually united under the leadership of Vercingetorix in a last attempt to repel the Romans. However, Caesar's military genius prevailed, culminating in the siege of Alesia in 52 BCE. The Gauls were ultimately starved into submission, and Vercingetorix surrendered, effectively ending the Gallic resistance. Over the next 2 years, Caesar continued to conquer and incorporate the Gallic territories into Rome, even granting the Gauls Roman citizenship. However, his growing power and popularity alarmed the Roman Senate, who demanded he disband his army and resign. Faced with the choice of obeying the Senate or risking civil war, Caesar made a fateful decision. Crossing the Rubicon River, Caesar committed an act of treason, sparking a civil war. Battles in Corfinium and Pharsalus demonstrated Caesar's strategic brilliance. Though outnumbered, he defeated the forces led by his former son-in-law Pompey in a crucial battle in Spain, forcing Pompey to retreat. When Caesar returned to Rome, the people hailed him as their leader, and he was declared dictator for life, marking the beginning of a new era in Roman history. Caesar immediately set to work, implementing a range of reforms and policies aimed at improving the lives of ordinary Romans and consolidating the power of the central government. He commissioned the construction of new infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and aqueducts, which connected different parts of the city and boosted trade and commerce. Caesar also introduced a series of political and social reforms, granting citizenship to many people across the Roman Empire and establishing new laws and customs based on Roman practices. He promoted the spread of Latin language and culture and introduced the Julian calendar, the foundation of the calendar we use today. However, Caesar's reign was short-lived. In 44 BCE, just 2 years later, he was assassinated by senators Cassius and Brutus. This brutal event threw the Roman world into chaos, as various factions fought for control. Amid this turmoil, Caesar's adopted son Octavian, who was only 18 at the time, came to Rome to claim his inheritance and assert his position in the political arena. He quickly aligned himself with Caesar's loyal lieutenant, Mark Antony, and together they defeated Caesar's assassins at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE. Tensions soon arose between Octavian and Antony, as both sought to dominate the Roman Empire. Their rivalry culminated in the naval Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, where Octavian emerged victorious. Antony fled to Egypt with his lover Cleopatra, and the following year they both committed suicide. With Antony's defeat, Octavian became the undisputed ruler of Rome. In 27 BCE, he was given the title Augustus, becoming the first Roman emperor. During Augustus's reign, a man who would change the course of history was born in the Roman-occupied city of Bethlehem, Jesus Christ. According to the Gospel of Luke, a decree from Caesar Augustus required that all the world be registered for a census, which was essential for tax purposes. This decree forced the highly pregnant Mary and her betrothed Joseph to travel 90 miles on foot from Nazareth to Bethlehem. When they arrived, they found no room at the inn and had to take shelter in a stable, where Mary gave birth to Jesus. Jesus, later known as the King of the Jews, would grow up to inspire a movement that would change the world forever. As Jesus' following grew, so did the stories of his miraculous deeds, curing the blind, catching endless amounts of fish, and being the Son of God. His disciples, particularly Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, chronicled his life in the Gospels, forming the foundation of the New Testament. Despite his growing popularity, Jesus was viewed as a threat by some, especially under the reign of Emperor Tiberius, who succeeded Augustus and ruled from 14 AD to 37 AD. Tiberius was notorious for his network of informants who reported suspected traitors and criminals, often leading to executions. Pontius Pilate, the prefect of Judea at the time, was well versed in harsh punishments. As Jesus became more influential, he was seen as a political threat, leaving Pilate with no choice but to order his crucifixion, following the stringent Roman law that demanded absolute loyalty to the emperor. Jesus' crucifixion marked the birth of a new religion, Christianity. In its early days, Christianity was a small sect of Judaism, but its growth was unstoppable. Paul of Tarsus played a pivotal role in spreading the teachings of Jesus across the known world, from Greece to Turkey to Syria. His missionary journeys, documented in the New Testament's book of Acts, gained many followers but also sparked significant opposition. The growing divide between monotheism and polytheism made it increasingly difficult for Romans to accept a religious group that didn't believe in their gods like Mars and Jupiter. When the Great Fire of Rome devastated 2/3 of the city in July 64 AD, Emperor Nero quickly blamed the Christians, further intensifying the persecution of this new faith. To fund the extensive repairs after the Great Fire of Rome, Emperor Nero imposed heavy tributes across the empire. To cover the costs, he also began printing more Roman currency, leading to the first inflationary period in the empire's history. This new policy angered those living under Roman rule outside of Rome, sparking unrest, particularly in Jerusalem. In 66 AD, the first Jewish revolt erupted. The Jewish forces initially succeeded, expelling the unprepared Roman army and gaining traction in nearby Galilean villages. In response, Nero sent General Vespasian to confront the Jewish forces. By the time Vespasian was declared emperor in 69 CE, most rebels had been pushed into Jerusalem. In 70 AD, during Passover, Vespasian's forces laid siege to the city, cutting off food and water supplies. Internal conflicts among the Jews weakened their defenses, and by August, the Romans breached the walls, massacred much of the population, and destroyed significant religious sites. This crushing defeat reinforced the dominance of polytheism in the empire. Under Emperor Trajan, who reigned from 98 to 117 AD, the Roman Empire reached its greatest territorial extent, spanning from modern-day Britain to the Persian Gulf. Roman influence was pervasive, except in the Americas, which were unknown to them. Meanwhile, in the Andes, the Moche civilization, located in present-day Peru and Chile, constructed monumental structures like the Huaca del Sol and Huaca de la Luna. They developed advanced agricultural techniques, using bird droppings as fertilizer, and maintained a highly centralized government. Further south, the Nazca civilization remained shrouded in mystery. The Nazca people created large-scale geoglyphs, known as the Nazca Lines, by removing the iron oxide-coated pebbles from the desert surface. The purpose of these lines remains unknown, fueling various conspiracy theories today. Around 100 AD, the Zapotecs began establishing Monte Alban as their capital, one of the earliest examples of urban planning in the Americas. The city was laid out in a grid pattern, with roads leading to plazas and public buildings, and it was divided into districts with specialized functions: residential, administrative, and religious. Monte Alban remained in use for nearly 1,000 years. Back in Rome, after Trajan's death in 117 AD, Emperor Hadrian faced the daunting task of maintaining control over the vast empire. In Roman Britain, unrest was brewing as the local population resisted Roman rule. Fearing a full-scale revolt, Hadrian ordered the construction of a massive wall, known as Hadrian's Wall, which stretched nearly coast to coast, serving as a physical reminder of Roman dominance. However, unrest continued in other parts of the empire. In Galilee, Simon Bar Kokhba led a rebellion against Roman rule, inspired by the construction of a new Roman city, Aelia Capitolina, over the ruins of Jerusalem. Bar Kokhba was hailed by many Jews as the Messiah who would restore their independence. His forces managed to storm Aelia Capitolina, nearly wiping out the Roman garrison. Hadrian responded with overwhelming force, sending 120,000 soldiers to Judea to crush the rebellion. According to the historian Cassius Dio, 50 of the most important Jewish outposts and 985 villages were destroyed, with 580,000 men killed in battle. The devastation left Judea desolate and sent a clear message that Rome would not tolerate insurrection. Meanwhile, in China, a different narrative was unfolding. The spread of Buddhism alongside Confucianism and Taoism helped strengthen and unify the Han Dynasty. These three philosophies worked together to create a stable and enduring empire. In the Americas, the Mayans were making significant architectural advances. They designed short, broad temples with wide staircases flanked by enormous stucco masks, such as the E7 sub-pyramid. These masks were believed to capture the soul of the gods and bring it to the people, reflecting the deep spiritual connection between the Mayans and their deities. In the Middle East, a new empire was emerging with roots in the ancient past. Ardashir I, claiming descent from Cyrus the Great, united various Persian tribes and in 224 AD led his forces against the Parthian king Artabanus V in a decisive battle at Hormozgan. The Sasanian forces, known for their cavalry, defeated the Parthians and captured Artabanus V. With this victory, Ardashir declared himself king and established the Sasanian Empire, marking the beginning of a new era in Persian history. Ardashir I, after establishing himself as the ruler of the new Sasanian Empire, quickly centralized the government and built a new capital at Ctesiphon on the Tigris River. He re-established Zoroastrianism as the empire's official religion, which had been suppressed under Parthian rule. Ardashir also built a formidable military, particularly known for its skilled cavalry and archers, and began expanding his territory by conquering neighboring regions, solidifying the Sasanian Empire's power. As the Sasanians were rising, the Han dynasty in China was in decline. The dynasty's downfall was marked by a combination of political instability, economic troubles, external threats, internal rebellions, and power struggles. The weakening of central authority allowed regional warlords to seize control, and the government's attempts to address the economic issues failed. Eventually, a warlord named Cao Pi declared himself emperor and established the Wei dynasty, officially ending the Han dynasty. Meanwhile, in the Roman Empire, Emperor Diocletian, 284–305 AD, faced the challenge of managing an empire that had grown too large and complex. To address this, Diocletian created the Tetrarchy, dividing the empire into 4 regions, each governed by a separate emperor. The system included 2 senior emperors, Augusti, and 2 junior emperors, Caesars. Diocletian chose Maximian as his co-Augustus, while Galerius and Constantius were appointed as Caesars. However, this system soon led to chaos and anarchy, as each emperor harbored ambitions for greater power. The situation deteriorated further in 305 AD when Diocletian and Maximian retired, and in 306 AD, Constantius died. With 3 of the original 4 leaders out of the picture, a power vacuum emerged. Constantine the Great was appointed as Augustus and Caesar by his father's army, unilaterally replacing Constantius. At the same time, Maxentius, the son of Maximian, believed he should have been appointed Caesar instead of Valerius Severus. In 307 AD, Maxentius sent his army to force Severus to surrender. By 308 AD, Galerius appointed Licinius to replace Severus. This led to a divided empire, with Constantine ruling over Gaul and Britain, while Maxentius controlled Italy and North Africa. Maxentius struggled to consolidate his power, facing increasing resistance from the people of Rome. To secure his hold on power, he ordered the construction of a new bridge across the Tiber River near Rome, known as the Milvian Bridge. Constantine saw Maxentius as a threat and decided to march on Rome. As their armies approached the Milvian Bridge, Constantine reportedly had a vision of a cross in the sky with the words, "In this sign, conquer." Some accounts suggest this vision may have been a dream or hallucination, while others believe it was a sign from God. Regardless, Constantine interpreted it as a divine message and had his soldiers paint the Christian cross on their shields and banners, going into battle with renewed confidence. The Battle of the Milvian Bridge was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Despite Maxentius's larger army, his troops were disorganized, and Constantine took advantage of this, pushing them back toward the Tiber River. In the chaos of the retreat, Maxentius was forced off the Milvian Bridge and drowned in the river. Following his victory, Constantine met Licinius at Mediolanum, modern Milan, to confirm several political and dynastic arrangements, producing the Edict of Milan. This edict granted religious tolerance to Christians and restored properties confiscated from them during previous persecutions. However, the peaceful coexistence between Constantine and Licinius was short-lived. Despite the Edict of Milan, Licinius remained a staunch pagan, and tensions between the two rulers grew. Their differences culminated in a final confrontation near the city of Chrysopolis in 324 AD. In the ensuing battle, Constantine's military prowess was once again on display as he forced Licinius's forces toward the sea, leading to the capture or death of many of Licinius's troops. With Licinius defeated, Constantine was declared the sole ruler of Rome, marking the end of the Tetrarchy and the beginning of a new era under his rule. Constantine the Great, after securing his victory, renamed the Eastern Roman capital from Byzantium to Constantinople. In 325 AD, he presided over the First Council of Nicaea, where 300 bishops established the Nicene Creed, a declaration that Jesus Christ was begotten, not made, and of the same substance as the Father. Constantine was finally baptized as a Christian on his deathbed in 337 AD. By 370 AD, the fearsome Huns, a nomadic and warlike people, entered the scene. Known for their brutality and horsemanship, they crossed the Volga River and began terrorizing various civilizations. The Alans were among the first to fall, followed by the Ostrogoths in 372 AD, and then the Visigoths in 376 AD, forcing them to seek refuge within the Roman Empire. The Huns soon became infamous as the new barbarians, earning a reputation for their relentless invasions. The Roman Empire faced even more threats after the death of Theodosius the Great in 395 AD, who had successfully kept the Goths and Huns at bay. He divided the empire between his two sons, Arcadius in the east and Honorius in the west. With Honorius in charge, the Western Roman Empire became vulnerable. The Visigoths, seeking new territory, began attacking Roman cities and ultimately sacked Rome on August 24, 410 AD, marking the first time in nearly 800 years that a foreign army occupied the city. Meanwhile, in the east, Attila the Hun rose to power, earning the title the Scourge of God for his ruthless campaigns. After a failed peace attempt in 441 AD, Attila ravaged the Balkans and the Danube frontier, eventually reaching Constantinople. However, the city's formidable walls prevented him from conquering it, leading to a peace agreement in exchange for a substantial annual tribute. In 451 AD, Attila invaded Gaul, where the Visigoths and Romans joined forces against him in the Battle of the Catalaunian Plains. Despite suffering his first and only military defeat, Attila continued his campaign, attacking Italy in 452 AD, until he encountered Pope Leo I. According to legend, apparitions of Saints Peter and Paul appeared to Attila, convincing him to withdraw. The Western Roman Empire struggle continued, and in 476 AD, Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of the West, was overthrown by the Germanic general Odoacer, marking the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Odoacer was declared king of Italy, but was eventually defeated by Theodoric the Great, who established the Ostrogothic Kingdom of Italy in 493 AD. While Europe was plunged into the Dark Ages, India flourished under the Gupta Empire, entering a golden age of mathematics and astronomy. Great minds like Brahmagupta pioneered the use of zero and advanced mathematical solutions. The astronomer Aryabhata calculated the Earth's circumference and introduced methods for determining pi and square roots. His most remarkable achievement was the concept of an asymptote, a line that approaches a curve but never touches it. In 496 AD, Clovis Thirst, the king of the Franks, faced the Alemanni in the Battle of Tolbiac. As the Franks were on the brink of defeat, Clovis called upon the Christian God, vowing to convert to Christianity if victorious. According to legend, a sudden thunderstorm turned the tide of the battle in his favor, leading to his conversion and the eventual Christianization of the Frankish kingdom. The Franks, inspired by a sudden storm, managed to regroup and launch a successful counterattack against the Alemanni, securing a decisive victory. True to his word, Clovis won converted to Christianity, marking a significant moment in history that solidified Christianity's place in the region and laid the foundation for the Frankish kingdom. While the Western Roman Empire was in decline, the Eastern Roman Empire, based in Constantinople, was undergoing significant transformations. Many historians debate whether the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, should be considered a continuation of Rome. However, it is clear that under the leadership of Justinian I, the Byzantine Empire entered a new era. Justinian expanded the empire, reclaiming territories in Italy, North Africa, and even Spain. He also commissioned the Corpus Juris Civilis, a codification of Roman law that would become the foundation of European legal systems. Additionally, he oversaw the construction of the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, a magnificent cathedral that became the center of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Meanwhile, in the town of Mecca, a man named Muhammad was born into the Quraysh tribe. Orphaned at a young age, Muhammad was raised by his grandfather and later his uncle. As he grew older, he became a merchant, earning the nickname Al-Amin, meaning the trustworthy. In 610 AD, during one of his retreats to a cave on Mount Jabal al-Nur, the angel Gabriel appeared to Muhammad, delivering the message of God. These revelations became the opening verses of Surah 96 of the Quran. Initially hesitant, Muhammad eventually began to preach, gathering a small following that was met with hostility by the pagan leaders of Mecca. As tensions escalated, Muhammad and his followers were forced to emigrate to Medina, where he played a key role in ending civil wars and establishing a prosperous Muslim community. However, this prosperity was soon challenged by the Quraysh and their allies, who marched on Medina with a large army. Muhammad devised a strategy to defend the city by digging a trench around its perimeter, which effectively thwarted the Quraysh's attempts to breach the defenses. After weeks of failed attempts, the Quraysh were forced to retreat, marking a victory for the Muslims. In 630 AD, Muhammad and his followers marched into Mecca, capturing the city with minimal bloodshed. He granted amnesty to former enemies, converting most of the Meccan population to Islam. By the time of his death, Muhammad had successfully united the Arabian Peninsula under Islam. After his death, a series of caliphs, starting with Abu Bakr, continued to lead the Muslim community. Under their leadership, the Muslim Empire rapidly expanded, conquering key territories such as Damascus and Jerusalem from the Byzantine Empire and toppling the Sassanid Empire by capturing its capital in 637 AD. The Muslim forces continued their conquests, eventually capturing Egypt and taking the city of Alexandria in 642 AD, dealing a significant blow to the Byzantine Empire. By 716 AD, the Arabs had established an extensive empire stretching from Lisbon to China. They then turned their attention to Francia, modern-day France, launching raids into the region. In 732 AD, led by Amir Abdul Rahman al-Ghafiqi, the Arab forces quickly captured several cities, including Bordeaux and Tours, as they sought to expand their territory northward. Charles Martel, the military leader of the Franks, assembled a formidable army to confront the advancing Arab forces. This clash, often seen as a battle between Christianity and Islam, took place near Tours on October 10, 732 AD. The battle was intense, lasting several days, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Ultimately, Charles Martel and his forces emerged victorious, forcing the Arabs to retreat back to Spain and halting the massive expansion of the Arabic Empire. While war and conflict defined the West, China under the Tang dynasty was a land of religious harmony, where Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism coexisted peacefully. This period also marked the height of Chinese poetry, with poets like Li Po and Du Fu creating works that would become cornerstones of Chinese literature. Li Po's poem Zanzan on the Qing Thing Mountain, translated by Sam Hamill, captures the serene beauty of nature, illustrating the era's artistic and cultural richness. Meanwhile, in 768 AD, Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great, became king of the Franks. A skilled military leader, Charlemagne expanded his empire across much of Western Europe, including modern-day France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. A devout Christian, he worked tirelessly to spread Christianity throughout his realm. In 785 AD, Harun al-Rashid was declared Caliph of the Abbasid Caliphate. Unlike his predecessors who focused on conquest, Harun concentrated on intellectual and scientific growth, establishing the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. This center of learning attracted scholars from around the world who translated ancient texts in advanced fields such as algebra, chemistry, sociology, and the concept of infinity. While intellectual pursuits flourished in Baghdad, the Vikings from Scandinavia had different ambitions. On June 8, 793 AD, the Viking Age began with a brutal raid on the monastery of Lindisfarne, a significant center of learning on a small island off the northeast coast of England. The Vikings pillaged the monastery, killing monks and taking others as slaves, sending shockwaves throughout Europe. In 799 AD, Pope Leo III was attacked in Rome by those who accused him of tyranny and misconduct. Fleeing to the Frankish kingdom, the Pope found refuge with Charlemagne, who provided an escort back to Rome, restoring Leo to his papal office. This loyalty was rewarded on Christmas Day in 800 AD, when Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne as the Holy Roman Emperor, establishing a new Roman Empire. Under Charlemagne, the foundations of a great empire were laid, but his death in 814 AD brought a host of challenges. Louis the Pious, Charlemagne's son, inherited an empire riddled with problems. Though he was seen as a devout Catholic, he was perceived as weak, unable to defend his realm from Viking raids along the Rhine River. These raids, which targeted cities like Cologne, Trier, and Mainz, instilled fear and anger among his subjects. As a result, local leaders began focusing on defending their own lands, leading to the rise of a new feudal system in Europe, similar to the one that had existed in ancient China. Meanwhile, the Byzantine Empire faced its own challenges. In 820 AD, Arab raiders landed on the island of Crete, gradually taking control and incorporating it into the Arab Empire by 827 AD. The conquest of Sicily and Sardinia followed a similar pattern, with Arab forces landing in 827 AD and quickly gaining control of the islands. After Louis the Pious's death in 840 AD, Charlemagne's empire fractured. The Treaty of Verdun in 843 AD divided the empire among three of Charlemagne's grandsons, leading to the formation of the West Frankish Kingdom, modern-day France, the East Frankish Kingdom, modern-day Germany, and the Middle Kingdom, which soon became irrelevant due to its position between the other two. As the Holy Roman Empire splintered, the Vikings continued to pose a significant threat, not only to mainland Europe, but also to the wider Christian world. Alfred the Great, who became King of Wessex in 871, was determined to protect his kingdom from the relentless Viking raids. He implemented a network of fortifications known as **Burhs****, and developed new military strategies to defend against Viking invasions. Alfred's efforts in building alliances and fortifying defenses allowed him to maintain stability in Wessex during a turbulent period. Interestingly, while the Vikings were wreaking havoc in England, they were invited to Russia. According to Russian legend, the local tribes, weary of internal conflicts, invited the Varangians, a group of Vikings, to establish order. Rurik, along with his brothers, took control of Novgorod, establishing the Kievan Rus' dynasty. This marked the beginning of a state that would evolve into modern-day Russia. Alfred's legacy continued with his grandson Athelstan, who became King of Essex, and successfully united the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms to defend against the Vikings. Athelstan's leadership earned him the title of the first King of England, laying the foundation for one of the longest-running monarchies in history. In the East Frankish Kingdom, King Otto I faced challenges from the pagan Magyars. His victory at the Battle of Lechfeld in 955 marked a turning point, allowing him to consolidate power and eventually be crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 962. This coronation symbolized the restoration of Christendom across former pagan territories. France, however, faced a crisis in 987, when King Louis V died without an heir, leading to the election of Hugh Capet as the first King of France. This event marked the beginning of the Capetian dynasty, which would dominate French history for centuries. During this time, feudalism began to take root across Europe as societies became increasingly militarized and hierarchical. The social pyramid placed serfs at the bottom, followed by knights, nobles, kings, and at the top, the Pope, who held spiritual authority over all. Meanwhile, Leif Erikson, a Norse explorer, embarked on a voyage to the west of Greenland, discovering a land he called Vinland, in what is now Newfoundland, Canada. Leif and his crew established a small settlement there, marking the first known European presence in the Americas. In the early 11th century, significant events were also unfolding in the Middle East. The destruction of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem by Arab Caliph al-Hakim in 1009 shocked Christians across Europe, leading to calls for a holy war to reclaim the Holy Land. However, before this call to arms could be fully realized, the Seljuk Turks, a Central Asian Turkic people, began their expansion. By 1076, they had captured Medina and Mecca, consolidating their power in the Muslim world and setting the stage for future conflicts with the Christian West. The call for the First Crusade by Pope Urban II at the Council of Clermont in 1095 rallied Christians across Europe to liberate the Holy Land from Muslim rule, promised spiritual rewards and forgiveness of sins. Knights, nobles, and peasants alike embarked on this holy mission. Prominent leaders like Godfrey of Bouillon, Bohemond of Taranto, and Robert of Flanders led armies to Jerusalem. The Christian forces, despite their unity, faced a divided Muslim world, enabling them to capture the county of Edessa in 1098 and ultimately the holy city of Jerusalem in 1099. However, the Crusades were far from over. In 1144, Muslim forces under Turkish ruler Imad ad-Din Zengi launched a successful siege of Edessa, taking the city from the Crusaders. In response, European armies embarked on the Second Crusade in 1147, but they were plagued by logistical challenges, infighting, and political rivalries. This disunity led to a disastrous defeat at the Battle of Inab in 1149, where much of the Crusader army was lost and King Louis VII was captured. While these events unfolded in the Middle East, The Hindu Khmer Empire, under King Suryavarman II, was constructing the magnificent temple complex of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu. This architectural marvel, with its towering central sanctuary and intricate bas-reliefs depicting scenes from Hindu mythology, stands as a testament to the ingenuity and devotion of the Khmer people. In 1187, Saladin, the Muslim commander from Egypt, declared a holy war to retake Jerusalem from Christian control. At the decisive Battle of Hattin, Saladin's forces, outnumbering the Crusaders, used superior tactics to encircle and crush the Christian army, leading to the recapture of Jerusalem. This loss spurred the launch of the Third Crusade, led by powerful monarchs such as Emperor Frederick I of the Holy Roman Empire, King Richard I of England, and King Philip II of France. Despite their efforts, they were unable to reclaim Jerusalem, rendering the Third Crusade a failure. Around the same time, in the vast steppes of Central Asia, a young warrior named Genghis Khan was rising to power. Born into hardship, Genghis Khan, originally named Temujin, united the Mongol tribes by 1206, creating a formidable force. Progressive in some aspects, he outlawed the selling and kidnapping of women, banned the enslavement of Mongols, and allowed freedom of religion. Yet in war, Genghis Khan was ruthless. His first campaign against the Western Xia Kingdom in 1209 was swift and brutal. He then turned his attention to the Jin dynasty in China, where his armies wreaked havoc from 1211 to 1214, leading to the besieging of Zhongdu, now Beijing, in 1214. The Mongols' ferocity in battle left a lasting impact on the regions they conquered, setting the stage for the expansion of one of history's largest empires. In the early 13th century, King John was under intense pressure from his barons, who demanded more rights and legal protections. To address their concerns, John agreed to negotiate, which led to the creation of the Magna Carta. This landmark document outlined several fundamental rights, including the right to a fair trial, due process, and protection against arbitrary arrests. One of its most significant contributions was the establishment of habeas corpus, requiring the government to justify a prisoner's detention in court, a principle that has since become a cornerstone of modern legal systems worldwide. Meanwhile, across the globe, the 13th century was marked by other pivotal events. In 1217, the Fifth Crusade, led by King Andrew II of Hungary and Duke Leopold VI of Austria, aimed to capture Jerusalem but ultimately faltered after initial successes in Egypt. Despite capturing the city of Damietta, the Crusaders faced numerous setbacks and were eventually forced to retreat, leaving their mission unfulfilled. Around the same time, Genghis Khan embarked on his campaign against the Khwarezm Empire, sweeping through Central Asia with devastating force. The Mongols conquered cities like Bukhara and Samarkand, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Skilled workers were often spared, while resisting soldiers and aristocrats were killed, and unskilled laborers were used as human shields. The death toll from Genghis Khan's campaigns remains uncertain, but his empire stretched from the Sea of Japan to the Caspian Sea by the time of his death. Remarkably, about 8% of men in South Asia today are believed to be descendants of Genghis Khan. In 1228, Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire launched another attempt to seize the Holy Land, but his efforts ended in failure, marking the conclusion of the Sixth Crusade. Despite this, the desire to retake Jerusalem persisted, leading to the Seventh Crusade in 1248, spearheaded by King Louis IX of France. However, Louis was captured and ransomed, and his second attempt in 1270 ended tragically with his death from dysentery. While Europe was embroiled in crusades, England was making significant strides toward representative government. In 1295, King Edward summoned what would become one of the first parliaments, seeking approval for taxes to address common dangers. This move laid the groundwork for the parliamentary system that would shape England's future. Further south in Africa, Mansa Musa of Mali was amassing legendary wealth. During his famous pilgrimage to Mecca, he distributed so much gold that it caused economic disruption across northern Africa due to inflation. Upon his return, Mansa Musa focused on transforming Timbuktu into a center of Islamic learning, investing heavily in the University of Sankore. Scholars flocked to Timbuktu to study Islamic theology, law, and literature, making it a renowned hub of knowledge. Meanwhile, in the Americas, the Aztecs founded their great city of Tenochtitlan, guided by a divine sign, a vision of an eagle perched on a cactus eating a snake. This marked the beginning of a powerful civilization that would leave an indelible mark on history. After founding Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs began constructing remarkable temples, including the Great Temple, which featured two main structures dedicated to the gods Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. The city itself was a marvel, designed with a sophisticated system of canals and causeways that managed flooding and facilitated transportation. The Aztecs also developed innovative farming techniques, cultivating crops like maize, beans, and squash on floating gardens called chinampas in the shallow waters of Lake Texcoco. As the Aztecs and Mali built their great cities, England and France were locked in a conflict that would last a century, the 100 Years' War. The war's origins lay in the complex politics of the Duchy of Guyenne, a territory that was owned by the British Crown but located in France. Additionally, when the last direct male descendant of Charlemagne, King Charles IV of France, died in 1328 without an heir, Edward III of England, his closest male relative, claimed the French throne in 1337. This claim was fiercely contested by the French, igniting a prolonged and bitter war. As the 100 Years' War raged, Europe was struck by a catastrophic pandemic, the bubonic plague. Described by the Italian poet Giovanni Boccaccio, the plague caused painful swellings, or plague boils, that appeared in the groin or under the armpits, sometimes growing as large as an apple or an egg. Historians believe the plague was spread by rats traveling on ships and merchants along the Silk Road. The pandemic was devastating, killing an estimated 75 to 200 million people. The massive loss of life led to significant social changes, including improved rights for workers as landowners, desperate for labor, were forced to offer better conditions to farmers. In China, during this turbulent time, the Red Turban Rebellion erupted against the Mongol rulers. Led by Zhu Yuanzhang, who rose from humble beginnings in a poor peasant family, the Red Turbans gained strength. In 1368, Zhu declared himself emperor and founded the Ming dynasty, marking the start of a new era in Chinese history. In Europe, Joan of Arc, a young peasant girl, emerged as an unlikely military leader. At 16, she left her village of Domremy and sought an audience with Charles V of France, requesting to lead the French army against the English. Despite initial skepticism, Joan's persistence won her the support of French commanders. Her first major victory came during the Siege of Orleans in 1429, where she led a series of bold attacks that broke the English siege and liberated the city. This victory boosted French morale and turned the tide of the war. Over the next few months, Joan led the French to further victories, but her success also attracted enemies. In 1430, she was captured by the English, tried for heresy and witchcraft, and ultimately executed at the stake in 1431 at just 19 years old. 20 years later, the Battle of Castillon in 1453 saw Charles VII of France defeat the English, effectively ending England's territorial ambitions in France. Meanwhile, in the east, the Byzantine Empire was in decline. Beset by years of war, political instability, and economic difficulties, the once great empire was faltering. In contrast, the Ottoman Empire, led by Sultan Mehmed II, was ascendant. Recognizing the strategic importance of Constantinople, Mehmed II launched a siege on the city in 1453 with an army of 80,000 soldiers, including elite janissaries and a formidable artillery force. The Byzantine defenders, led by Emperor Constantine II, were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Despite their valiant efforts to defend the city, the Ottomans bombarded Constantinople for nearly 2 months, causing extensive damage to its walls. On May 29, 1453, the Ottomans launched a final massive assault, breaching the city's defenses. The Byzantine defenders were overwhelmed, and the Ottomans captured the capital, marking the fall of the Byzantine Empire. With the fall of Constantinople, all roads no longer led to Rome, signaling the end of an era. As the great city of Constantinople fell and the remnants of Caesar's empire were erased, the Ottoman Empire rose to dominate the region, marking the beginning of a new era of Turkish power and influence in the Mediterranean. While the Byzantine Empire crumbled, Russia was on the rise. Under the rule of Ivan the Great, the Russians finally broke free from Mongol dominance. In 1472, Ivan refused to pay tribute to the Mongols, and after years of building his military strength, he successfully drove out Mongol forces from various Russian cities. By 1480, after a tense standoff, the Mongols retreated, signaling the beginning of a free Russia and the decline of the once mighty Mongol Empire. In 1492, as Christopher Columbus embarked on his famous voyage across the Atlantic, he stumbled upon a new world rather than a route to India. Landing on an island in the Bahamas, which he named San Salvador, Columbus and his crew encountered the Lucayans, a people skilled in fishing and farming. The Lucaans welcomed the Europeans, providing them with food and supplies. Meanwhile, back in Europe, a cultural renaissance was flourishing. In 1503, Leonardo da Vinci painted the enigmatic Mona Lisa, a masterpiece of art and science, renowned for its mysterious smile. Michelangelo, too, was leaving his mark, sculpting the iconic David in 1504, and later painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling, works that continue to inspire awe. During this time, Niccolò Machiavelli penned *The Prince*, a political treatise that remains influential to this day. In it, Machiavelli famously argued that it is safer to be feared than loved, as fear is a more reliable means of maintaining power. His observations on human nature and the harsh realities of political life resonated with the ordinary people who lived in fear of their rulers and the ever-present threat of invaders like the Huns or Mongols. However, not all were content with the status quo. Martin Luther, a German monk, was outraged by the Catholic Church's practice of selling indulgences, which he saw as corrupt and contrary to the teachings of the Bible. In 1517, Luther wrote his 95 Theses, challenging the authority of the Church and calling for reform. By nailing these theses to the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, Luther sparked a debate that would eventually lead to the Protestant Reformation, forever changing the religious landscape of Europe. In 1519, Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés arrived on the shores of the Aztec Empire. Initially welcomed by the Aztecs, who believed the Spaniards to be emissaries of the god Quetzalcoatl, Cortés soon revealed his true intentions. Over the next few years, he led a brutal campaign to conquer the Aztec Empire, aided by superior weaponry and indigenous allies. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the Spanish forces laid siege to the Aztec capital, ultimately capturing it in 1521 and bringing about the fall of the mighty Aztec civilization. Inspired by Cortés's success, Francisco Pizarro embarked on a similar mission in South America, leading an expedition that resulted in the conquest of the Incan Empire in present-day Peru. While the Spanish conquests were marked by extreme violence, the most devastating impact on the indigenous populations came from the diseases the Europeans unwittingly brought with them, such as smallpox. These diseases, to which the Europeans had developed immunity, decimated the native peoples, leading to the collapse of their once thriving societies. During the same period, the Ottoman Empire under Suleiman the Magnificent reached the height of its power. Suleiman was a brilliant military leader and strategist, and his reign was marked by numerous conquests and political achievements. By the end of his rule, the Ottoman Empire spanned vast territories, from southeastern Europe to Arabia and Persia, and became the dominant naval power in the Mediterranean, controlling key cities in North Africa like Algiers and Tunis. Under Suleiman's leadership, the Ottomans established a civilization that would influence the region for centuries. Yet even in the midst of such grand empires and conquests, personal passions could shape the course of history. King Henry VIII of England, driven by his love for Anne Boleyn and his desire for a male heir, defied the Catholic Church, which refused to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. Henry's solution was to break away from the Church and establish the Church of England, a decision that would have profound religious and political consequences for the country and beyond. Henry VIII's decision to establish the Church of England, with himself as the head, set the stage for a seismic shift in religious power in Europe. In 1534, Henry passed the Act of Supremacy, declaring the king, not the Pope, as the supreme head of the Church of England. This bold move angered the Catholic Church, leading to Henry's excommunication and creating a lasting schism between the Church of England and the Catholic Church, a divide that still echoes today. Meanwhile, in Russia, Ivan the Terrible had taken the throne. In the early years of his reign, Ivan achieved great success, expanding Russia's borders through military campaigns and commissioning grand public works like St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. However, as he grew older, Ivan became increasingly paranoid and erratic. After the death of his beloved wife Anastasia in 1560, Ivan's behavior took a dark turn. He unleashed a reign of terror through the Oprichnina, a campaign of brutal purges and executions that left thousands dead and countless families shattered. His volatility and cruelty earned him the name Terrible. As Russia descended into turmoil, England was flourishing under the rule of Queen Elizabeth I. The English Renaissance was in full bloom, with playwrights like William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, Ben Jonson, and John Webster transforming the stage with their poetic language and profound themes. Shakespeare, in particular, brought history to life with plays such as Julius Caesar *, King John *, and Henry VII, exploring themes of power, ambition, and human nature. Across the ocean, England was planting its first seeds of colonization in the New World with the establishment of Jamestown in Virginia. At the same time, Samuel de Champlain was founding Quebec in Canada, laying the foundations for French influence in North America. Back in Europe, religious tensions were once again erupting into conflict. The 30 Years' War, which began in 1618, pitted Protestant and Catholic states against each other in a brutal struggle for dominance. The war ravaged much of Europe, with armies clashing in bloody battles and committing horrific atrocities. It wasn't just a religious conflict. Political and economic ambitions also fueled the war. After 3 decades of devastation, the war finally ended in 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia, which recognized the independence of the Dutch Republic and established the principle of state sovereignty within the Holy Roman Empire, marking an end to the religious wars that had plagued Europe. While Europe was embroiled in the 30 Years' War, China was facing its own challenges. The Ming Dynasty was in decline, weakened by corruption, factionalism, and economic troubles. In 1644, the Manchu forces, led by Prince Dorgan, launched a massive invasion of China. The weakened Ming army was no match for the Manchus, who swiftly captured Beijing and ended the Ming Dynasty, ushering in the Qing Dynasty and continuing the cycle of dynastic changes in China. As the Qing Dynasty was taking hold in China, Europe was experiencing another significant conflict, the War of the Spanish Succession. When King Charles II of Spain died without an heir, a fierce struggle erupted over who should succeed him. King Louis XIV of France supported his grandson Philip, hoping to extend French influence over Spain. On the other side, Emperor Leopold V of Austria backed Archduke Charles of the Habsburg dynasty, seeing him as a counterbalance to French power. The war escalated, drawing in most of Europe, with France and Spain facing a coalition that included Austria, Great Britain, the Dutch Republic, and others. The war ended in 1713 with the Treaty of Utrecht, which recognized Philip as the King of Spain, but required him to renounce any claim to the French throne, while also ceding territories to Great Britain and Austria. In 1707, as these global conflicts were unfolding, the Acts of Union were passed by the Parliaments of England and Scotland, uniting the two kingdoms into a single political entity known as Great Britain. This union laid the foundation for a new chapter in British history, one that would see the nation rise to become a global power in the centuries to come. Was leading the charge for independence in South America. Bolivar, inspired by the American and French revolutions, sought to liberate his homeland from Spanish colonial rule. His campaigns across the continent earned him the title El Libertador, as he successfully led the liberation of several South American countries, including Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. His vision was to create a united federation of Latin American nations, but political divisions and regional interests ultimately led to the fragmentation of his dream. As Bolivar was fighting for independence in South America, the world was undergoing significant changes. The Industrial Revolution was transforming economies and societies, particularly in Britain, where advances in technology and manufacturing processes led to the rise of factories, urbanization, and a new working class. This era of rapid industrialization brought both progress and challenges, including harsh working conditions, child labor, and the displacement of traditional industries. In the United States, the young nation was expanding westward, driven by the belief in manifest destiny, the idea that it was America's divine right to expand across the continent. This expansion, however, came at a great cost to Native American populations, who were forcibly removed from their lands through policies like the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Congress of Vienna was convened in 1815 to restore order and stability after the Napoleonic Wars. The leaders of the major European powers sought to redraw the map of Europe, restore monarchies, and establish a balance of power that would prevent future conflicts. The Congress succeeded in creating a relatively stable European order, but it also sowed the seeds for future tensions as nationalist movements and demands for greater political representation began to grow across the continent. In the mid-19th century, the world witnessed a wave of revolutions and social upheavals. In 1848, a series of revolutions erupted across Europe, driven by demands for political reform, national independence, and social justice. These revolutions, though ultimately unsuccessful in many cases, marked the growing discontent with the old order and the rising influence of liberal and nationalist ideas. In the United States, the issue of slavery was tearing the nation apart. The debate over the expansion of slavery into new territories and states led to growing tensions between the North and South. These tensions eventually culminated in the American Civil War, which broke out in 1861. The war was fought over the preservation of the Union and the abolition of slavery. After 4 years of brutal conflict, the Union emerged victorious, and slavery was abolished with the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865. As the 19th century progressed, European powers began to expand their empires through colonization, particularly in Africa and Asia. The scramble for Africa saw European nations carve up the African continent, imposing their rule over vast territories and exploiting their resources. This era of imperialism was marked by both technological advancements and profound social and political consequences for the colonized peoples. The turn of the 20th century brought with it new challenges and conflicts. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria in 1914 sparked the outbreak of World War I, a global conflict that would reshape the world. The war led to the collapse of empires, the redrawing of borders, and the rise of new ideologies, including communism and fascism. The Treaty of Versailles, which ended the war, imposed harsh penalties on Germany, sowing the seeds for future conflict. The interwar period saw the rise of totalitarian regimes, including Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany and Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union. These regimes pursued aggressive expansionist policies, leading to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. The war was a devastating global conflict that resulted in unprecedented destruction and loss of life. It ended in 1945 with the defeat of the Axis powers and the emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers. The post-war era was marked by the Cold War, a period of intense rivalry between the US and the USSR. This ideological conflict between capitalism and communism dominated global politics for decades, leading to proxy wars, nuclear arms races, and the division of Europe by the Iron Curtain. The Cold War eventually ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, marking the end of a bipolar world order. In the years that followed, the world witnessed rapid globalization, technological advancements, and the rise of new challenges, including climate change, terrorism, and the spread of democratic movements. The 21st century continues to be shaped by the legacies of the past, as nations navigate the complexities of a globalized world while grappling with the enduring impact of historical events. Let me tell you about some pivotal moments that shaped history, starting with Simon Bolivar, who was a revolutionary leader in Latin America. Bolivar's journey began in Venezuela in 1810, where he led an uprising against the Spanish colonial authorities. After securing victory there, he moved on to Colombia, achieving significant wins, including the decisive Battle of Boyaca in 1819, which ensured Colombia's independence. His success didn't stop there. He went on to Ecuador and Peru, where he continued his streak of victories, eventually capturing Lima in 1824, effectively ending Spanish rule in Peru. Bolivar's final campaign was in Bolivia, where he played a crucial role in securing its independence in 1825, a nation that would be named in his honor. Now, fast forward to 1848, when two men, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, penned the Communist Manifesto *. This book introduced a radical idea. What if the working class, rather than the wealthy elite, controlled the means of production? Marx and Engels argued that the workers, or proletarians, had nothing to lose but their chains and everything to gain from a revolution. Their ideas ignited debates worldwide, especially as the global landscape began to shift. Soon after, in the 1870s, Europe turned its gaze to Africa, initiating what we now call the scramble for Africa. European powers raced to claim territories and resources, often using aggressive and ruthless tactics. They carved up Africa with artificial borders, causing divisions that still affect the continent today. But by the early 20th century, Europe's focus shifted, as tensions rose within Europe itself, culminating in the outbreak of World War I in 1914. The scramble began to lose momentum. World War I was triggered by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, leading to a domino effect of alliances that plunged Europe into a brutal conflict. By November 1918, after 4 years of relentless warfare, an armistice was signed, ending the war and marking the fall of empires. But peace was fleeting. Less than 2 decades later, Adolf Hitler sought to build an empire that would surpass even the Roman Empire in its grandeur. His ambition led to World War II, a conflict that brought unimaginable devastation. The war in Europe ended in May 1945, when Soviet forces captured Berlin, and soon after, Japan surrendered following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, bringing the war to a close. In the aftermath of these wars, the world entered a new era, driven by technological advances. The invention of the computer by Alan Turing during World War II sparked a technological revolution. Over the next 50 years, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union kept tensions high, even as humanity achieved incredible feats, such as landing on the moon in 1969. Today, we live in a world that feels smaller and more connected than ever, thanks to computers and cell phones. Yet the story of humanity is far from over. Like the ancient hero Gilgamesh, who ultimately realized that immortality is out of reach, we are part of a continuing saga where empires rise and fall, and each generation seeks its place in the ever-evolving history of civilization.